Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bible Explained. Last episode we covered chapter 12, and that was the call of Abram. We covered how Abram was called by God, and you might be surprised to know that there was very little to nothing in it, actually. And it clarifies how Abram actually got to where he was, why he did what he did a little bit. But this is going to be a little bit more, so we're going to be getting into that. If you need a refresher, I strongly urge you to check into the previous episode. And before that, we covered the Tower of Babel and Noah and all of that stuff. So if you've never heard of Genesis or you're just searching this up, via college, this is just me using my time at college to sort through every word, every sentence, and just expound on it. This is a deeper study than your casual men's Bible study or your Sunday school at church. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. We're just going to go through chapter 13 here, and we're going to get into it right after we thank the good Lord for another day and Christ for his forgiveness, because basically everything we do as humans is a sin. If we don't continue Christ's commission, it's a sin. If we go out and live as part of the world, it's a sin. So without Christ, we definitely would fall short of perfection. So with that said, let's get into Genesis chapter 13. First verse, so Abram went up from Egypt to Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot with him. That is verse 1. We're talking about Abram on the heels of what had occurred from Egypt, the previous chapter. Verse 2, Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. This is just reaffirming what had happened. He was in the previous area. He lied about his wife being his wife and instead being his sister. And God sent a bunch of plagues because, the person in charge there was wanting his wife and doing things that were against God. It's not particularly specified. As I said, you need to really listen to the previous chapter, read the previous chapter to get the context for this chapter. But my point is, it's very generalistic. Let's just imagine Abram is God's champion, and for whatever reason, he didn't understand or know that he could just trust in God, that God would protect him and not have him killed off. And so he said a lie. And to get rid of him, the person gave him a bunch of livestock, a bunch of gold, and sent him away. Now, me personally, I would be a little bit crossed if you lied to me and I was being plagued by God. I would kind of sentence you to death, but apparently he didn't do that. So we're going to continue on. Verse 3, from Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier. Verse 4, and where he had first built an altar, there Abram called on the name of the Lord. So, again, in the previous chapter, while he was traveling, he had built an altar, and it's just calling back and giving us some context and some notations here that he went back to that altar that he originally built. Verse 5, now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. Verse 6, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. Verse 7, and quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Perizzites, it's very difficult for me to pronounce things. Okay, we're going to take it back. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living on the land at the time. Verse 8, so Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Verse 9, is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. So, there you have it. This is how Lot and Abram left. They were blessed with great riches, great possessions from the previous chapter, but they had too many, okay? They had so many animals. They had so much that it was getting intertwined and causing issues between the people that served them, that worked for them, and they couldn't keep them separate. I find it very unique and interesting that they wouldn't just say, we'll just work together. What's yours is mine and mine is yours. But they did do it separately here so that they wouldn't be intermingled. That is one form of doing it, but once again, I would like to suggest that staying together would have been a better idea. For we know the future because we've read the Bible. But if you don't, spoiler alert, this isn't a good thing. Verse 10, Lot looked around and saw the whole plain of Jordan towards Zoar was well watered, like garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. I appreciate that that's in brackets there. I'm not particularly sure why they felt the need to specify that, because that is a spoiler. I mean, we don't really read the Bible to be shocked and surprised and awed, but it is interesting that they're trying to describe this. Yeah, this was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Hilarious. Verse 11. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of Jordan and set out towards the east. The two men parted company. Verse 12. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, and while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Verse 13. Now people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. So see, here you go. You hear what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen because we get that little spoiler there. Again, I'm not particularly sure why they felt the need to include that here. Verse 14. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, quote, this is the Lord speaking, look around from where you are, to the north and the south, to the east and the west. Verse 15. All the land that you see I will give you and your offspring forever. Verse 16. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Verse 17. Go, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So this is the Lord's covenant being established with him. I want you to note a couple things. The Lord did not speak to Abram before Lot parted. Way before they started traveling, the Lord did speak to Abram, and then they started traveling with Lot. But my point here is that God could have come to Abram while Lot was there and said, Lot, you should stay with Abram because I'm going to make him this offer. But he didn't do that, and there's a reason for that, and you'll find that out way later on. But the point is that this is the covenant that's being established. It's basically the good Lord giving land to Abram, and we're getting into the establishment of God's people. Verse 18, so Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. And that's the final verse. Some takeaways here. This is where God establishes and fulfills his covenant with Abram. The covenant will continue to be fulfilled through many, 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 many chapters. The promise is still seen today by many, many people. Lot separated and went to Sodom and Gomorrah, and we're going to be seeing that in the next chapter. I want to invite you all to accept Christ today. If you haven't accepted Christ, I strongly urge you to. It's very hard to live sin-free in this world where many other people benefit from other people's suffering indirectly, directly, through taxes, through purchases, things like that. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize, and the point is that you can live sin-free with Christ. We need a little bit of protection. We need a guardian angel, as it were, and the good Lord Christ is there. Like an attorney, he is our representative to God. So, just accept that he died for our sins, and you're in like Flynn. Now, I wanted to just add a footnote here. I was reading out of the King James Bible and the New International version, but you can choose almost any version. Just note that the version differences are going to be numerous. You're still going to get the same message, but the differences are, could be staggering to the point where it's almost a completely different translation. Just realize that and be aware of that. I will see you guys again very soon, and hopefully you did enjoy your time here.